Hello, hello. It always takes a second, but
Yes.
play hello.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Yeah, so let's give it a little bit for people to start trickling in. But thank you for joining. This is going to be the discussion for our fall cozy mystery book club pick, the Pint of No Return. Let me know if you all can hear us okay. I know that there's only a handful of you in here now. Hi, Katie. Alicia, Christina, thank you guys so much for joining. Hi, guys. We'll just give it another minute or so and then we'll just kind of dive in. Hi, another Alicia. Hi, Eve. Hi, Shan.
Hi.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I can hear you pretty good, Spencer, and I like your little fireplace like in the background.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. So I think the last time we met, I was on the roof as well because I had to get out of my house so that you guys wouldn't hear a rambunctious toddler. And this time, this is like the second half of our rooftop, and there's like this fireplace ambience. So I'm like, ooh, let me do a little something. I don't even know if it works, but at
No,
least
it looks cute.
it
It's a
got
cute
something.
background. Very, very cool. All
Awesome.
right, guys. So we're gonna be talking about The Pint of No Return by Ellie Alexander, the second in the is this the Cross mystery
The
series?
Sloane Krause mystery. I'm gonna assume this is also your first book in the series too, because this is the
Yeah.
first book I also read. Yeah, so it's the second book technically of the series. But um we'll get into that. Oh, I'm a bit quiet. And I'm on an echo? Uh-oh. That's
I
no
don't hear
good.
the echo too much, so I think you're okay.
Okay, okay. And I do have a glare, so let's that is what it is. This is raw, guys. This is raw vlogging. Okay,
So,
so I'm gonna go ahead and should I share the graphics and then we can just kind of get
yeah, sure.
started?
Yeah, let us know if you guys finished the book and what you guys rated it. You want to share your rating first, Spencer?
Yes, so I gave it a 4. Um, I thought it was a really solid start to me. It was a start for me to this series. So you go ahead and tell me what you gave it, and I will share a graphic.
Perfect. I gave it a 5. I think Ellie Alexander is one of those authors that can do no wrong for me. Like I thoroughly enjoy her writing style. It's not just the mystery, like it's the setting and the characters, and I don't know, something about her writing just does it for me. So definitely a
Yeah.
5. And I wish I would have started with the first book and then read
Oh,
the second one. I feel like that was poor planning on my part. But
yeah.
yeah, 5 stars, really, really loved it. So let us know what you guys rated it. And we're gonna go over some of the character prompts and then we have discussion questions.
Hmm.
Okay, 5 star, 4 star.
Yeah. Oh my
So
gosh. Yeah, Sam, I also, I mean, I also had good intentions and I wanted to read the first book, especially since this is only the second one and we wouldn't have to read a huge backlog, but things happen, blah, blah, blah. I don't think that, we can go further into this, but I don't think I had any problems jumping in to the series whatsoever. Um, and I have a feeling like as we talk further about it, I might end up bumping it up to like a 4.5 or a 5 because that's how I tend to do when we talk about the book. But
yeah.
yeah, it was a solid 4 for me, but even more than that. So just to give you guys a quick recap on what the book is about, if you're joining and you didn't read it, which is totally fine. This is the second book in the Sloane Krause. I listened to it on audiobook and that's how they pronounced it.
Oh, beautiful.
I thought it was Kraus, but it's German. And basically, Sloane lives in Leavenworth, Washington, and she works at a microbrewery. So the theme of the entire series is beer, which we'll get into that as well because I don't drink beer. But
Either. What
basically,
a funny pick. Me either.
I know, and I chose it because of Oktoberfest. And to be honest, I'm veering off a little, but it's fine. I hesitated picking this book up for so long because I don't drink beer.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's plenty of cozies that I have read where I'm not necessarily a huge fan of what the theme is, but I still have some interest. And this one, I'm like, I don't know how this could be interesting to me because I don't even care about learning about beer, but I think that I'm eating my words just because the rest of the series or the rest of the story and the setting just totally nailed it. So, um, anyway, let me continue what it's actually about. So yeah, so our girl Sloane, she is actually recently separated or about to be separated from her husband who cheated on her, which I'm going to glean based on context clues. We find that out in the first book. Excuse me. Um, but basically she is at her brewery one day and there is a filming company that is in town. They are planning to do a documentary all about Oktoberfest and beer, blah blah blah. And one of the guys on the crew, the host specifically, he's a real jerk, a real piece of work, and you can tell that he's just rubbing everybody the wrong way. And later that night, after he has really just kind of pissed everybody off, Sloane is walking home from work and she sees a woman shouting after another woman saying, you know, you killed him, you killed him. Him ends up being the murder victim who is the jerk. And so we kind of find out a little bit about each of the women, the one who was saying you killed him, and then the other woman who allegedly was the suspect, who happens to be a local in town who owns like a vacation rental company. And Sloane basically inserts herself, obviously, as sleuths do, to kind of figure things out. Though I will say, Sam, I was I didn't mind it, but I was quite surprised at the direction that the story took, because when we found the woman being accused of the murder, I thought that Sloane was going to have to essentially clear that woman's name for the whole book. But the police, it didn't seem really ever suspected the woman. It was just like hearsay from the other eyewitness. So I kind
Yeah,
of appreciated that. That was kind of a breath of fresh air, because it made it more harmonious. But anyway, that's kind of the 911 or the skinny about the story.
that's a pretty good breakdown. So this is the second in the series. I know some of you guys were saying you don't like to read books out of order. Cozy mysteries in general tend to be very long series. You have like 13, 14, 15. Some
Yeah.
even have like 20, 30 in a series, right? The intention is you can read them in order to just get like the cozy vibes of all the characters, but you're supposed to be able to pick these up at any point too.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you'll get a recap in the beginning, which is what we got in this book, like her husband cheating on her, how she's working at this brewery. It's such a hard word for me. It's like a tongue
Yeah.
and sometimes it can feel redundant once you read series because you get a recap like every single book. But I feel like Ellie Alexander does it in a way that's not very like show and tell. It just like naturally flows with the story. So I
Yeah.
felt like even though we didn't read the first book, I still understood all of the major players, which was really nice.
Yep, I totally agree. And I'm also relieved that it's only the second book, just because, you know, it's not that much effort if I did want to go back and read the first one. But
Right.
I am glad that we started with this one because I think it was peak October seasonal vibes. We can get more into that. I can start going down the list of characters and we can just kind of share our thoughts about them. Um, so we've got Sloane, obviously. She's our amateur sleuth. I did not know, again, I didn't know jack about this series other than the beer and the location, but I did not know that she was a mom, which I was really surprised. Like, not only is she a mom, but she has a teenage son. So I'm really curious. I don't remember if the book alluded to her age, but I'm curious if she was a young mom or not, because to me, and I listened to the audiobook, but even if I read it, she gave off kind of a woman my age, which is mid 30s. And her son is a teenager. So that
Yeah.
would, you know, you would assume that if that math added up, she would have been a young mom. But again, they could have mentioned that in the first book. But
I placed her in mid 30s as well because there was when she said she met the family, her husband Mac and his family, she said they were, wanting us to be together and it wasn't,
yeah,
that far that I got pregnant. Like she said that she
yeah,
immediately got pregnant when they got
yeah,
together. So I did assume she was a young mom and she was kind of having like this throughout the book she was basically saying she wanted to like reinvent herself and like really
hmm,
start over, and I feel like that's not something someone would say if they're like a little bit older. So I placed her
hmm,
in like mid 30s.
yeah, yeah, same. Okay, somebody is saying that
Okay.
1920 when they got together. So yeah, that would track. So yeah, so we've got Sloane, she's a mom. I did appreciate excuse me, and I know this can't necessarily be the case for all of the books going forward, but for my first introduction, I did appreciate the fact that the son was like kind of out of the picture for the majority of the mystery, because then as a mom, I'm like not having to worry about juggling that and solving the mystery, which I know can be a fine balance in what's realistic or not. So, anyway, yeah. So next we've got Garrett. He is the owner of the microbrewery that she works at. I do have a question related to their relationship as one of the discussion points, but we can talk about it now if you want. But again, I didn't read the first book. So I don't know how their relationship started off, but she definitely seemed interested in him. And what's funny is because I didn't know about him from the first book, it took me a minute to kind of get a handle on his character, like whether he was supposed to be a nerd or whether he was also interested in her. I mean, you kind of get an indication later on, but
Yeah.
that could get a little that has a potential to get a little, I don't want to say messy, but interesting as the
I
series
love
goes
him.
on.
I love him. Immediately when he came on the screen, because he's like this, he's a bit of a science nerd.
Yeah,
He's super chill, which is exactly what she needs after the divorce. I loved
yeah.
him. I don't know if it was the romance reader in me, but I totally caught them flirting multiple times, and I was like,
Yeah.
I want them to get together. I know it's gonna take a
Mhm,
while because cozy mysteries, that's what happens. But
mhm.
I absolutely loved him. He was one of my favorite characters, and I would love to see them get together.
Yeah, it was really cute, especially toward the end. I mean, not even toward the end, but all of the little moments that he was basically saying, let me take care of you, or I worry about you, or I trust you, and all of that. So much so I'm also interested to see like how their business relationship works, because she works for him, but you would think if that she owned, she was part owner just because of how much control she had in the business. And I say that in a good way, but yeah, he's a keeper, I would say.
Yes, I was
um
totally rooting for them. I loved it when he was saying, like, "I don't know what I would do if something happened to you," and I was like, "I love it."
yeah.
Because when you go into cozy mysteries, there's always not like a strong romance. You'll get a love triangle
Yeah.
here and there. You'll get a hint of a romance in existing relationships, but that's never the focus in the book. But I feel like this one
Mhm.
had potential, really good potential.
Yes. Yeah, it's definitely a lot more relationship uh references than I would say in her Bake Shop Mysteries. I mean, obviously, which is a little ironic because Jules in that series is actually married, even though they're kind of estranged. But
I know that's my
the
biggest problem
chemistry
with
here
the
felt a
series.
lot stronger.
You know what though? Before we continue with the rest of the characters, I will. Okay, so I don't know if you guys are familiar with Ellie Alexander and if you've read her Big Shot mystery series, which is my favorite series, like cozy mystery series. I feel like this one was a little bit grittier. Like the romance itself was a little heavier than her Big Shot mystery series. There was multiple times where they used like a curse word, which is like
Hmm.
a little crazy when it comes to cozy mysteries. You
Yeah.
usually don't see that. The heroine was a little less green, if that makes sense. Like she seemed to have
Hmm.
a lot of wisdom in her. I just feel like this was like a little more adult than her Big Shot mystery series.
Yeah, and it's interesting you say that because I agree, and for that matter, I think that I don't know if a lot has to do with the fact that she's a mother
Mhm.
or older, but not even that much older, because I think Jules might be early 30s. I'm guessing here,
Yeah.
but they're not wildly, separated in age. But you can definitely tell that there is um, wisdom. I don't want to say maturity, but yeah, there's definitely a lot of more wisdom, and the the grittiness, like you said, of the characters and everything. It's like, okay, it's a different vibe, which I appreciate, because you can like Ellie Alexander, but it doesn't feel like a copy paste, just something set in a different town. It's a totally different
Oh,
series, and it feels
total
that way.
different tone, like a totally different tone. I feel like Big Shot Mystery is good for those of you who are getting introduced into the genre. Um, but this one I just feel like would appease more to like people who really came from like the murder thriller genre, and
Mm,
who want
mm.
maybe just a little bit more like adult. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know. It's not adult, but
No,
like
yeah,
yeah,
I get what you're saying. That's a really good point.
yeah. Someone said if you like Garrett, then definitely keep reading the series. Oh, so exciting! I love them.
Yeah,
I love them. Yay!
yep, definitely.
Okay, we can go.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm glad that I put Mac's name down here. Let me see if I can pin the comment. Because he is um sorry, did I say Mac? There's hold on, let me find the comment. Max, okay, yes. Okay, so Mac is Sloane's soon to be ex husband. Again, they're separated because she found out that he was cheating on her, which I don't love those tropes. I'll go ahead and say it. And they
Mhm.
happen quite frequently. I think in this case, it felt I was a little bit more hesitant because in this case, she has to share the same town and she shares a child with him. Like she can't distance herself, you know? Like in a lot of tropes, we see a jilted lover leaving or fleeing to go somewhere else, and that's where they're starting their life and the mystery, blah, blah, blah. But in this case, they're stuck in the same town. They share a child. You know, they share family basically because his parents and his brother she's really close with, and it's interesting, and I'm curious to see how she's going to take the relationship with them because of how he didn't seem like a totally awful person. Did he make an awful, almost unforgivable mistake? Yes. And there were even some moments where he was, clearly like drunk, and you can see that he doesn't necessarily make the best business decisions, but he validated it by saying, I'm going to do whatever it takes to prove myself to you or to win back your trust. Like basically groveling. So, and he's clearly talented also because of the beer that he makes that she's surprised by. So anyway, I don't feel like I hate him, which I guess is to say I'm surprised by that. So
Yeah,
he's
yeah,
he's clearly going to be sticking around, so I'm curious to see how that is going to go. And again, I didn't read the first book, so he could have been the worst then, and it's totally unforgivable. But here I think things have kind of simmered, and because she didn't harp on it in the whole series. She was again very mature about it, wanting to make sure that her son had a relationship with his father. And, she said that it's unforgivable, but at the same time, recognizing they have to work together. It's like, okay, well, you're not talking shit about him, so I can't totally hate him.
yeah, yeah. I didn't particularly like him, but I don't mind that he's in the same town. I personally like family dynamics, so I thought that
Mm,
was like an interesting plot that could be throughout the series, like her relationship with her ex-husband, his parents that were basically like parents to her,
yeah.
his brother. I think it just adds more to the story as far as
Hmm.
like tense family dynamics
Hmm.
that could continue in the series outside of the mystery.
Yeah. And to your point, again, this was another facet that makes it a little bit more um I don't know the word because I don't want to say gritty and I don't want to say less cozy, but it's definitely harder hitting maybe than
Yeah,
traditional cozies because
yeah,
again, usually when you're getting that B plot of following the characters, it's a lot lighter. And this is something that's, more grounded in reality because life is messy and people have exes and share, parenting, co-parent and all of that. So yeah, it's definitely a different cozy that I'm
yeah. I
used
think
to.
like Christina said, I think it is more realistic and more relatable. I feel like
Yeah.
sometimes cozies, the setting can be very cozy, and almost like taking you out of like real life.
Yeah.
Escapism is what I'm looking for. And I feel like this one it would be a cozy that people could actually like relate to. The town, the
Hmm.
setting, all the struggles that she's going through is probably something people could relate to. So I liked
Yeah.
it. I did.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so we've got Mitchell. Now he is the murder victim. I meant to highlight that in red and I forgot. But guys, he's our murder victim. He is the jerk. He is along with the documentary crew that's in town, and he is the one who um, basically kind of winds up dead because of pissing a lot of people off. I think that they did a decent job with, okay, so I think they did a really good job with showing how much of a jerk he was.
Yes.
However, I'm torn because when I was first reading it, I wanted more scenes with him to really ground home who his character was. Not all cozies are set up like that. A lot of times you'll kind of find out more about them afterward, as you know, the sleuth is talking to people and you're hearing their motives. But yeah, he was definitely a grade A asshole, and it's one of those like, oh, you kind of get what's coming to you. But I don't know. What did you think about him?
Yeah, I think a lot of cozies tend to go in that direction where the murder victim is usually not a character that you're rooting for because then it's
Yeah,
sad, right? Then you're sad that this person is gone. It's more so like, okay, like, yeah, that kind of sucked, but he was a jerk, so let's find out what happened.
yeah,
Um, I think I didn't really have too much to say about him, honestly.
yeah, yeah. So actually, I did have one question for you because I can't remember. I'm skipping ahead a lot just for a quick second. Was he the one who trashed the room? Did we
No.
find that out? Okay, okay, we'll get back to that. All right. Okay, so we've got Kat. So I've got some thoughts on her, but basically, she is a woman who she's the president of Mitchell's fan club, and she's the one who's actually the person screaming at the suspect like, oh, you killed him, you killed him. And what we come to find out is that she is not necessarily a runaway, but somebody who's super young, who made a really impetuous decision to quit her job and follow this person in hopes of making it big and all of that. So she winds up basically stranded in the town having to work
Yeah.
for a place to stay, which um I did not see that coming. And again, that's brilliant writing because just like I'm sure the rest of the actual cast, I was a little bit suspicious of her in the beginning, kept waiting on that shoe to drop, like, oh, you're lying. What are you hiding? But when I found out kind of like what her deal was, she's harmless. So it seems like she's going to be a character that sticks around, and I'm interested to see how that's going to play out.
Yeah, there wasn't really a time where I felt like she had done it. I don't know why. It would just I felt like we were focusing on her too much for her to be, the murder victim or the murderer.
Mm-hmm.
I just felt like I don't
Mm-hmm.
know, it would have been too obvious. And I just thought she was like this young, naive kid. And I did have a
Mm-hmm.
feeling that she was going to end up working for them. And maybe like
Mm-hmm.
we were just being introduced to more characters in the town.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I didn't really suspect her too much. Her stories didn't really match up. She did seem very naive, but I didn't feel like she had murdered him. Because I was
Okay.
like, whenever, okay, so I don't always try to guess who the murderer is, but because it's a book club pick, I do, if that makes sense. Like
Yeah.
I'm trying
Yeah.
to think more about like red herrings versus if I would
Hmm.
read this casually, I don't think about
Yeah.
that stuff. But
Yeah.
I always think like, what does this person have to lose? And I felt like, or what does this person have to gain from killing Mitchell? And I just feel like
Yeah.
Kat didn't gain anything. She didn't have like a huge motive to
Hmm.
kill him. So that's why I kind of just never suspected her too much.
Yeah, it's interesting because I mean, the whole point of red herrings is like you're supposed to like guess and then it's wrong. But I, for a moment, thought it was her because um, when we learned from Sally, nope, sorry, Lisa, the vacation rentals owner, that Mitchell hit on her, I thought maybe, and this is my mind going left and clearly being wrong, but I thought maybe it was a situation where Mitchell and Kat did meet up and he tried to assault her basically. And that's kind of
Oh,
why she may have, it was just like an accident in self defense. That's where my brain went for a brief moment. I mean, speculation, clearly wrong, but but yeah, to your point, I of course looking back, yeah, she's definitely a character that is introduced in the second book, which she has something similar. Ellie Alexander, the author, has something similar in the Bake Shop series with somebody who winds up working at her shop, and they're kind of a
he's my
you
favorite.
know
I love him.
yeah, exactly. Okay, so next we have I'm just gonna kind of group all these together and we can talk about them however we want. But David, Peyton, and Connor, they are basically part of the documentary crew. David is the producer. He actually used to work with the murder victim back in the day when they were both kind of young in Hollywood. Peyton is a director. She is a female and all about, like, you know, women paving the way and making space for themselves at the table within the Hollywood scene, which that's very realistic and I can totally see that. And then lastly, we've got Connor, who is the cameraman, and he was kind of described as like really young and green. And you know, I felt bad for him because he basically put up with all of Mitchell's bullying and you know, bad talk just because he thought that that's how it was supposed to be, and he was just kind of like paying his dues and trying to get toughened up, which I'm like, oh my gosh, like, yes, you're also right, but also the guy is being a jerk to you and you shouldn't stand for it.
Exactly. Yeah, these three were my personal suspects from like the beginning because I was like, they were the closest to him. They have the most to gain from his murder. Yeah, these three were the ones that I was like kind of suspecting if I were to throw
Mm-hmm.
in like how I was feeling during the book. The only
Mm-hmm.
thing that I guess the one critique I would have is I feel like we actually did not get enough time with these three characters. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like we got so much information about Kat, a ridiculous information about Lisa, and even that April girl, and you know, her husband, her brother-in-law, like all of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But these three people who we didn't know anything about from the previous series because they just came to
Mm-hmm.
the town,
Mm-hmm.
we didn't really get much time with them, and we didn't even know that David had worked on the set with Mitchell until like the latter half of the book. So I definitely wish
Yeah.
we saw them more throughout the festival,
Mm-hmm.
or saw them filming a little bit more. I don't know. I wanted more information from them.
Yeah, I agree. You know, especially when it comes to the end and the person is kind of talking about their what do you call it, their reasoning for doing it. One of the things though that I was thinking about the whole time, and then even at the end, that I don't feel got resolved or answered was why the three of them, or at the very least David and Peyton, why they just acted so chill the whole time. Like
Oh yeah.
Sloan mentioned multiple times, like their attitudes were totally, they didn't seem like they knew anything about beer. Their attitudes were totally like carefree almost after Mitchell died. And it's like, okay, it's one thing if you're kind of relieved that homeboy is dead, but um, I was expecting it to come out that maybe they were all in cahoots and there was no documentary simply because of how little they knew about anything. And I don't, and that's the part I feel like didn't really get answered because, you know, again, when we're in the resolution, they really were filming a documentary. In fact, they actually had, I think, a couple of them planned because they asked, what's his face, her ex-husband, to be the host of them. But it's like, you guys didn't, you're legit, but you didn't do any any
Yeah.
research. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I thought similar. I like that you said that maybe the documentary wasn't real. I hadn't thought that, but I did think that it was two people who did it. I thought it was like brains
Mm.
and brawn, like someone planning it out and then someone like carrying the body. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
The second they mentioned that he was roofied, I thought of her popping those pills too. I was like,
See,
oh,
I totally forgot about that part. Shows how much I was paying attention.
no, I thought about it as soon as they say he was roofied. I was like, mm-mm. Well, when he said that he was roofied, I was like, I feel like it's a girl because that feels, you know, a guy. Maybe you know this is kind of sexist,
Yeah,
but a
yeah,
guy
yeah,
like brute strength, right?
yeah,
But a
yeah,
girl could roofie him and he drug him, and that would be easier to like carry his body away.
yeah.
So I figured it was, but I the whole time I thought it was David and Peyton. I thought it was both
Mm.
of them together trying to get him out of the documentary. Or maybe Connor was like involved and he was
Mm-hmm.
maybe like the errand boy cleaning things up, but he didn't really plan
Mm-hmm.
it. I wasn't
Mm-hmm.
sure out of the three of them who did it, but I definitely did think of her popping those pills.
Yeah, I didn't think about the pills, but I did. And again, maybe this is why I rated it 4 stars, which was the I'm forgetting the word, but their whole reasoning,
Yeah.
their justification. Um, she was smuggling money, and I don't feel like there was any hint of that at
Oh,
all. Like there wasn't any conversation
yeah.
or anything. So it seemed like it kind of came from left field, which is like, okay, well, looking back, I mean, yeah, you mentioned the pills, but there was nothing else to where it's like the pills and a conversation to where you can bring the both of them together. And that's why I feel like Kat had, thank you, motive. Thank you, Angela. My brain is fried. That's why I feel like Kat had a little bit more of a reason because of, you know, saying that she actually did, you know, try to meet with him and they never, anyway, I clearly was wrong, but yeah,
No,
I could see it
I
being two people
created
too.
like a whole story. I thought like David and Peyton were romantically involved. I thought they were like lovers, and that
Yeah,
David was like that Mitchell did something to David when they like worked together in the past, and now this was his revenge, and like they
yeah,
purposely like selected him for this
yeah,
so that they could get revenge.
yeah.
I think we can say like who the murderer is now, so it's a spoiler if you haven't read the book. Sorry, but it was Peyton, the
Yep.
documentary director, the girl. She drugged him, hit him with the thing, hit him with the growler. What are they called?
The growler, the glass,
The
the growler
glass.
glass. Yeah.
Exactly. And it was because she had like financial motives. And also, she was kind of disgruntled as a woman in the industry, feeling like she was not being taken very seriously. Yeah. Oh, and she's the one who trashed the hotel. She trashed Mitchell's thing because she was looking for the legal contract to see how she could get him out before.
I missed that part.
Yeah. She was looking for the legal contract to see how she could get him out of the documentary before she killed him.
Yeah. Yeah. And to me, okay, so now, and I missed that part. But it's like he's not the only person who would have the legal
Yeah.
document. So why would you trash? If anything, I would think that the trashing would be again like a red herring kind of situation. But anyway, overall, I still really enjoyed the book, but that to me felt a little bit half. I don't know. I just didn't put all the pieces together with
I think
that.
she was trying to make him look unhinged because she wanted him taking the medicine or the date rape drug. She was trying to make it seem like he was drunk and
Mm,
he fell and he hit his
yes.
head.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I think the trashing of the hotel room was even more like, oh my God, he was just so crazy. Like he
Okay.
just fell off his
Gotcha.
rocker. Yeah.
That totally makes sense. Yes. Yes. And that tracks with the way that his behavior was that night at the bar.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we kind of already talked about Lisa, who was the vacation rentals owner, and she was the one that Kat kind of initially accused of like, oh, you killed him or whatever. They did
Right.
have a um public confrontation, which that's a typical thing in cozies. And Mitchell was staying at one of the properties that she owned that was, as we come to find out, trashed. Um, to me, she was a red herring because I did think, especially after the fact, when you realize it's not her, that she was really intense about getting in there and photos. Because,
Yes.
first of all, if it's dark and you're using your flashlight to take photos, you're not getting anything good for insurance purposes or anything anyway. And it's
Yeah.
like, girl, insurance is definitely going to cover it. The cops are not going to clean up. So it's still going to look bad for you to take photos. Um, she was that to me was a little bit unhinged, like
She was
unhinged. To
so
be honest.
sus. She was so sus, and it would have made sense if it was her.
Yeah.
Because honestly, she should have gotten arrested. Okay, her alibi was
Yes.
not strong. She lied about where she was. She lied about
Yeah.
knowing him previously. She
Yeah.
tampered with police evidence. She tampered with police
Yeah.
evidence. She threatened him publicly. Like she
Yeah.
was absolutely bonkers and should
Yeah.
have gotten arrested at the very least for tampering with police investigation.
Yeah.
Nothing she was doing made sense to me. And I was just like, girl, what are you
Right.
doing?
Totally. And that's the ironic thing because again, in a lot of cozies, the amateur sleuth main character is having to excuse me, figure out who the killer is to clear their friend's name. And in this case, nothing came of Kat pointing the finger at her. So it's like in the
I
one
know.
case where I can see it looking bad and her being arrested until, her name is cleared, it didn't happen. So, that's fine, but I did think her behavior was really strange. It's I enjoyed getting a little surprise of like, oh, we're trying to open our own real estate business to go against. I mean, not to go against, but she knew that it would create friction between is it Angela? Well, the town busybody, basically. April, yeah, there we go. Who is really the one-to-one mirror of forgetting his
Richard,
name. Who?
Richard Lord. Richard Lord?
Yes, thank you. You knew what I was gonna say.
I knew it. The second I saw her, I was like, oh, this is Richard. This
That's
is Richard.
Richard Lord. Yeah, exactly. But honestly, and again, I didn't read the first book, so she could have came off worse, but I didn't think she was awful in this book. Richard is awful. Like he straight up yells in Joel's face. But this woman is just like overly enthusiastic and passionate about the town. So it's nothing that is specifically directed towards Sloane. It's just wanting to be like the spokesperson for the town, which kind of actually doesn't reminds me less of Richard Lord, but now that I'm thinking about it, reminds me of Taylor Dozy in Gilmore Girls. So that's kind of the vibe that I'm getting.
Yeah, she wasn't the worst. I think she's more entertainment value because there was even a point where Sloane like felt sorry for her.
Yeah,
Like
totally.
she had no one but the town, and she was very alone. Oh, April. I mean,
Lauren,
that was an interesting, a jilted her type of thing because she was all over Mitchell.
Yeah. I could see that too, honestly, Lauren. And I know that there have been, cozies where people in the town are actually the the ones who did it. So me not necessarily having read the first book, I didn't know what direction the series is gonna go. So I'm like, she could be one too.
Yeah.
Someone says I can't stand April. Yeah, so she might get worse, or she might just be overly obnoxious in the rest of the series. But yeah, she was, she was fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so last up we've got Sally, which I put her on the list not because that she was a suspect, but I really enjoyed this introduction of like a B plot mystery of Sloane not knowing, but like somebody not wanting her to find out who her birth parents are. I wasn't expecting that, and I love it. I really want to follow that trail.
Love it. And I was trying to think, I'm like, oh my God, who are her parents? Are they like government officials? Are they like movie stars? Did an affair happen? Was her mom like a minor? I was like, I literally was going deep, like, what is this plot?
It can go either way. Especially because it seems like I'm forgetting her name, but her husband's mom, like her surrogate mom, it seems like she's in on it too, because she was like, don't ask me, or I don't remember what she said, but she seemed like she knew something and was trying to avoid the subject when Sloane brought it up. So I'm like, this is bigger than just Sally coming with some blank files and saying that something is up. So I'm very intrigued by that.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Lauren. This is actually outside of the characters, outside of the setting and the romance. This is what is going to make me continue the series because I'm intrigued.
Outside of all of the things, this also is going to make you. But yes, I agree.
So much going on. You have the romance, the main mystery. You have the family dynamics, and now you have this B mystery plot of her finding her birth parents. Like,
I gotta be honest. The mystery. I mean, that's how it goes in cozies, but this one especially, I feel like the mystery is the thing I am least concerned with, because all those other things, if you take out the mystery, this could be like straight women's fiction or, a romance with like some extra stuff sprinkled in, and I would gobble it up because it reads like, I'm sure we've read books that are similar to this, and then you would just have this little thread of like, what happened to her parents and that whole thing, which super exciting.
I agree. For a mystery book, I didn't care about the mystery as much as I did some of the other points.
Yeah.
Which could be good or bad.
Yeah, exactly. And let's kind of jump in to our discussion points. I know we already kind of covered the feelings with her ex and Garrett. And the B-pop mystery. We're like jumping all over the place, but I'm glad we're checking things off. But I did want to ask you about the coziness factor, because again, I cared less or the least about the actual mystery, but like this, from the jump, it was just full on punch you in the face, fall, autumnal, cozy, Oktoberfest, blah 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 descriptions, and I really really liked that.
Yeah. She had a theme and she stuck to it. Like
Yeah.
every business, every event was full of Oktoberfest, and we were like thrown in the middle of so much like history and culture. I
Yeah.
know Ellie Alexander did a lot of research for this. Like she talks about it a lot on her social media, but you can
Yeah.
tell, like you can tell when
Yeah.
reading this book. For someone who is not familiar with a lot of the settings, like I don't really know anything about like German culture. I don't really know anything about
Mhm.
beer culture, but it was explained so well, and the fall setting was absolutely divine. Yeah, the setting was
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, and this is actually it's so intriguing because she has done it twice, and I see it rarely or less in other cozies, and that is setting your small town to be a real place. A lot of the
Oh,
times it's made up. I mean, not all the time, but a lot of the times they're made up places so that you can make it just as whimsical and cozy as you want. But both times she has not only chosen real places, but like places that are actually cozy. Ashland, Oregon is a real place from Bake Shop Mysteries. Leavenworth, Washington is a real place. It's about, I think, 2.5 hours from Seattle, and it too is a cozy place, for fall. I mean, year round, but especially fall and winter. And yeah, she's definitely done her research. I really enjoy cozies that obviously are seasonal, but the season takes place like during a town event or festival. I feel like that bringing up the people, you just get more excuse to describe stuff. And that's exactly, with Oktoberfest, she's able to lean super into that where it doesn't seem forced whatsoever.
right. And I think someone even mentioned that they were looking up like vacations in this area because of the fact that they read this one.
Yeah,
And I thought it would be like, how cool would it be if you were actually in that area reading this cozy mystery, visiting those
I
places
know.
that she mentions? I think Kayla from Books and Lala has a series on her channel where
Yeah.
she picked a cozy that was set in her neighborhood, and she would
Yep.
go like the different areas, and I just feel like it makes it more realistic, makes the setting just
Yeah.
better.
Yeah, totally. And yeah, it's a little element that you don't get in a lot of cozies, which is really fun.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so um so you didn't read the audiobook, but I did want to talk about that super briefly, which is I thought that the narrator did a really good job. I was a little bit hesitant at first because I didn't want it to be too similar to Jules from the Bake Shop Mystery series, but different pretty sure it's a different narrator, different voice, different vibe, different tone. I personally can recommend the audiobook if you guys haven't listened to it on audio, because I think that she does a really good job and her voice sounds mature, which also kind of leans into what we were saying about Sloane's character. So, um, if you guys are interested in reading the rest of the series via audiobook, I can vouch for it.
Yeah, I feel like the audiobook might have been a good choice because of the German pronunciations. That would have been nice to see how some of the stuff
Mm,
was pronounced. But yeah, I read it physically. I just read it physically.
yeah, yeah, which is fine because as I was making the character list, I'm like, I should probably look up some of these names because I'm only going off of phonetics. Like, as cat with a C or a K, who knows? But here we are.
Oh no, I think you spelled everything right. I think you spelled it right. Yeah, it's
Okay.
cat with a K.
Oh, I got lucky then. Okay, so we talked about the rating, but would you continue the series?
Yes, I would.
Yeah, yeah, I would too. And I think to your point that you would mention, there are a bunch of reasons why, but for me, I think the number one reason is the mystery about her parents,
Yeah.
followed closely by seeing how things pan out with her and Garrett and her ex. I mean, I could be in the minority, but like, I'm so interested to see how they're going to land, if they're going to kind of come to, neutral territory where they can exist together. But he's in the picture. So even if she does end up with Garrett, she's clearly going to have to, work alongside her ex, which that opens up a whole other can of worms.
I feel the same way. Those are the main two reasons that I would continue the series for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, well, I know that this one seems a little bit short, but we kind of blew through our discussion questions because it was a short book, but I feel like they jammed a lot of things into it and I really enjoyed it. It sounds like we all did. Now that I've talked it through, I know I said in the beginning that I might rate it a 5 after we talk about it. I'm gonna stick with my 4 just
Mhm.
because of the motive. I'm still like, it could have went either way, but solid series, highly recommend. We're both going to continue the series, and if you guys do, let us know on our Instagram pages and whatnot so that we know to look forward to more Garrett and more parent drama and all of that kind of good stuff.
Yeah. So, yeah, let us know on our Instagram pages. We do have an Instagram for the live show, Teacups and Murder. Because this is a seasonal book club, we only meet 4 times out of the year. We have all of our announcements there, and we will be picking our Christmas pick soon, sometime.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
if
yeah,
you
yeah.
guys have suggestions, we would love to hear them. Message us on Instagram, and maybe we'll pick one of your guys' books.
Yay, exactly. So, all right, well, thank you guys so much for joining, and we will catch you guys for our upcoming Christmas slash holiday slash winter themed book club pick.
Yes. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.